Are you ready? Are you shitting down?
The Schein on Podcast.
The Schein on Podcast.
The Schein on Podcast, Season 5.
We're going to pull back the curtain on the divorce process. It's fun, insightful, tremendous guests. They're topics that far too often many people shy away from. But not here on the Schein on Podcast.
It's episode 89 of the Schein on Podcast. I'm Evan Schein. Happy summer, everybody. We're coming off the July 4th weekend and some absolutely fantastic and long overdue, brilliant weather in New York. Now, I know some people debate, when does summer officially start? Is it Memorial Day? No, it's not Memorial Day. I graduated college 20-something years ago, right? Is it July 1st? For me, Dave, nothing says the start of summer like July 4th weekend, right? July 4th, you have the barbecues, you have the beach, you have the baseball conversation heating up at the All-Star break. And I got to tell you, is there a better July 4th song to listen to than Firework by Katy Perry?
Interesting. I didn't think you were necessarily going to go that way, but you cross generations, your musical taste, Evan, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I prefer Living in America by James Brown, but to
Dave,
each his own.
I got a 5-year-old.
That's
Five-year-old
right.
who is in that Katy Perry Firework dance moves. Like, she's playing it nonstop all throughout my house. Maybe in a different lifetime, I would have chose your song or some other song, but nowadays it's Katy Perry Firework all the time.
Yeah, she's got a seat at the table for those songs. I'd also throw in America the Beautiful by Ray Charles, and You Can Still Rock in America by Night Ranger. It's my sleeper.
Is it?
Yeah.
I can see that. Now, Dave, when does summer start for you?
Yeah, I'm with you, actually. I was thinking about this as you were kicking this off. July 4th is makes the most sense because there's some pageantry around July 4th. You mentioned a couple things. You mentioned baseball. I take it like every New Yorker, you were at the Nathan's hot dog eating contest and saw, what's his name? Joey Chestnut reclaim the
Chestnut's
title.
back after a year off
exciting.
in concontroversy, and he's back eating more hot dogs than ever.
No, I'm with you because up here in the Northeast, as Evan, we could still have, we haven't in the last week or so, but in recent weeks, it got down to 50-something, maybe even 40-something. You don't know whether to turn the heat off or the air conditioning on. And so it's 4th of July is safe, and we're in it now.
And Dave, it's hot outside, and it's even hotter in the Schein on Podcast studio. And look, we're back on the podcast after a few weeks off, and we have a really informative episode today. Coming up after the Overrated, Underrated segment, I'm joined by Haleh Moddasser. She's a CPA and author of Great Divorce Linings. We discuss late life divorce. Haleh gets into the myths about women and money, and she shares fantastic insights on how women can manage their finances post-divorce. Haleh also opens up about her own personal experience with divorce and how she developed a fantastic career and transition to wealth management, where she focuses on advice and advocacy for financial education for women. And Dave, I want to turn it over to you. You are every woman's firework. Let's get started with a great Schein on Podcast docket.
Let's do it.
And now, let's see what's on the docket.
Appreciate the compliment, Evan, but we both know that every woman's firework is actor Jon Hamm. They can't stop talking about Jon Hamm. And I know for today, for the docket, a special edition of the docket, we're going to get Evan's reviews on 2 recent TV shows that involve the concept of divorce. I've seen both of these, Evan, so I'm excited to hear your take and share mine.
Item 1.
Let's start off by listening to a little bit of the Apple TV show Our Friends and Neighbors, starring the aforementioned Mr. Hamm. Here's a little bit of the trailer.
No one would ever suspect a guy like me.
How are the kids?
Oh, they're fine.
Wife?
Ex-wife.
Well, I gotta deliver some bad news. You're fired.
What?
Viewed from a certain perspective, life boils down to a series of interconnected decisions. You get the house, the cars, the stuff. But how the hell could everything go so wrong so fast?
Has anyone ever told you that you talk a lot?
Well, I misplaced my inner monologue and my wife right around the same time.
How you doing, Coop? You okay?
Hey, you two, can I just say, I love that you had such a friendly divorce.
Right.
Hi. Yeah! It's getting harder to pretend that nothing's going on.
I just need to know how long I can float on what I got.
6 months. Tops.
I'd been thinking. These houses have all this stuff no one would miss for a while, if ever.
Rich guy loses his big job.
And so that gives you a taste of it. You could tell that the character played by him, Coop, right? That's his name. Coop is in financial dire straits in part because of his divorce and turns to crime. Fascinating premise. And you know who the voice at the beginning was of John Hamm's boss who lets him go? You know who that was?
No, who was it?
It was the actor Corbin Burnson, one of the more famous fictional divorce lawyers ever. He played attorney Arnie Becker on L.A. Law.
Look at that. Dave, you got to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, we might be able to, actually. So, yeah, give us your thoughts on your Friends and Neighbors.
Dave, I got to tell you, Dave, this was awesome. I love Friends and Neighbors. What a show. I mean, this was entertaining. I loved Friends and Neighbors. Olivia Munn, John Hamm, Amanda Peet, other great actors and actresses, shines a light on modern suburban life where appearances and careers and marriages and friendships intertwine and expose the cracks that divorce often bring to the surface. Look, Dave, I'm going to run down. I have my notes prepping for the show. I'm going to run down a few key highlights I have for the show. Divorce, it shatters that perfect suburban image. Everyone in Friends and Neighbors projects the image of having it all, the house, the cars, the money, the good job. People spend so much of their life and their time chasing an image, and yet you never really know what goes on behind closed doors. Who's having an affair? What are the marital problems? What are the problems that you're having with your spouse or your children? And unfortunately, divorce is that process that really reveals how much of that image is all smoke and mirrors. The show brilliantly reflects how success often masks emotional disconnect until divorce forces it into the open. There is such an emotional and financial cost of starting over. You see the characters. You see John Hamm. You see Olivia Munn. You see Amanda Peet really grappling with affording a certain lifestyle. John Hamm in that clip, he talks about how he's got 6 more months, right? He's paying for 2 houses. He's paying for expenses. And look, divorce is not just emotional, and we've said it on the podcast before. It's logistical and it's financial. And so many people underestimate, I find, the cost, the expense of upkeeping 2 homes at a certain lifestyle, at a certain status quo, at a certain image. There is such a tremendous cost on that. To me, Dave, the biggest takeaway from the divorce component of this is the impact on friendships and social circles. Divorce, you see, divides tight-knit friend groups, right? Divorce creates fractures in these groups. Friends are often tasked with the impossible problem of selecting sides, right? Who do you choose in the divorce? Whether it's the club or whether it's the friend or having boundaries. And look, God forbid you do a fantasy sports league with somebody's ex, right? Those are all sorts of things that you have to think about. But, you know, and then there's the affair. And you see the affair element throughout this show. And one of the things I see all the time when people ask me, Evan, how big of a role do affairs play? Affairs are the symptom. They're not the cause, right? And you see that in the show with different characters time and time again. But I got to tell you, I love the show. I think it highlights divorce in an interesting and brilliant way. I know you mentioned you watched it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, agree with just about everything you said. I'd add that I think you're right in that the relationships and the way one finds one place in your community and how that can drastically change with a divorce. That's the theme that runs through it. The fact that he turns to crime and is stealing from a lot of these couples in the community just sort of makes it fun. It's just like it's sort of an outrageous twist of fate. But I'd add that it shows like right off the bat, you see the first scene with like all the wives at the country club, and they're all talking, of course. And then you also see the men having their whiskey and billiards night and cigars, and they're talking too. And so it shows how difficult it can be to all of a sudden you're the divorced guy in that group. But the show also sort of lets you off the hook to know that maybe there's a ray of hope there. There's a part of the plot where John Hamm actually starts to befriend the guy that is with his wife now, his ex-wife now, at least for a period. I mean, right? And so there's sort of hope that, and the signal is that if you could be a good person and at least be fair to your ex, that you don't need to be completely excommunicated from the world. I don't know if you picked that up as well.
Yeah, no, I did. And look, I want to ask you, when you went through your divorce, do you find any similarities between what you went through and your friend groups and your ex-wife's friend groups? And as you think about what happened in Friends and Neighbors and normalizing it to your own situation, did you go through any of that?
Yeah, for sure. Now, I assume you and I have attorney-client privilege, so if people's Rolexes in Sharon, Massachusetts have gone missing, I don't want to admit to any of that. No, I didn't
yeah,
resort
your
to that.
secret's safe with me and the thousands of Schein on podcast listeners.
Yeah, but I think there are similarities in the show. I won't go into real specifics because I'm sure it's in the show, but there are things that surprise you both ways. There are things where you think, oh, I'm going to lose that friendship because it belongs to my ex, and I just got to let that one go. And then all of a sudden that person, people like that have come up to me and say, hey, just want to let you know I was friends with your ex and I was friends with you. I still want to be friends with both of you. One guy even texted both of us on the same text chain and said, I'm really sorry to hear this, but you're both my friends. And we both appreciated it. And then there are others that are really close to you that all of a sudden think you're Darth Vader for some reason. And so that's kind of life, right? Some people will, and maybe in a way it's a good thing that you find out who your true friends really are.
Item 2.
I promised not one, but two TV reviews that Evan will give, and the next one is on another huge runaway hit on Netflix. It's called The Four Seasons, and let's take a little bit of a listen to that trailer.
Text Danny and Claude. ETA 431, please be ready.
Danny says, you are not the f***ing boss of me. I will emerge when the magic hour light is perfect.
Take me in.
In the car!
We've been friends for 30 years.
I love all of you, plus...
Please do not talk about your other hotter friend group. It hurts my feelings.
I know, but that's so hot.
Are you guys happy?
What kind of question is that? Come on.
We sit in the same room, monitoring different screens. We're like coworkers at a nuclear facility.
I would love to go someplace alone and just read my phone all the way to the end.
You know those two. Complaining is their version of having sex.
Oh, son.
Oh, it's gonna be hot on that boat.
Dad, this feels like a basic midlife crisis.
Okay.
Show your father some respect, even if he is wearing a tank top that you can see his nipples through. What is going on with you two?
Claude lives in his own opera.
All right, we'll pot it down there. So, Four Seasons stars Steve Carell, Tina Fey, Will Forte, many others. But it's a remake of a film from the 80s, I want to say. I can look that up. But this is done in serial format with several episodes on Netflix. And it's another great choice, Evan, because this is not a spoiler because it's the main premise of the show is the Steve Carell character announces to his buddies, to their great surprise, that he is getting divorced from his longtime wife. And then the real drama starts, sort of who gets to keep the friends, how they divide that up and everything. And what did you think, Evan?
Dave, I love this show. I know some people, including my wife, thought it might have been a little slow, right? But I really, really liked it. I thought it was I thought it was well done. I thought the writing was great. But similar to what we talked about before with Friends and Neighbors, look, there is that social element, right? And you touched on a few things. I'm going to give you a different take as well, which is the traditions, the vacations. You see Steve Carell introduces his new, much younger girlfriend to their weekends away, to their vacations, and how she's judged and misjudged, and how there's resentment and anger. And there's that push and pull between wanting to embrace her and also wanting to dislike her, right?
Yeah.
And because she's not
The old
wife,
friend.
right?
Yeah,
the old
wife.
friend.
Yeah.
And it was really an interesting show on navigating the friendships and relationships. And the other thing, giving a different take, is that I wonder when you learn that someone in your friend circle is getting divorced, someone you didn't expect, someone you thought had the perfect marriage and perfect couple. You see in the show how, especially with Tina Fey's character and Tina Fey's marriage in the show, that you start to look in and you start to examine your own marriage, right, and your own relationship. And so I'll ask you, does hearing about one friend or a couple getting divorced who you thought had the most perfect marriage, do you think it forces people to look within and expose cracks that either were there or to widen the cracks that have existed for some time?
Yeah, I can tell you when I got divorced, there were a couple of people who had sort of private, Dave, I want to have a drink and talk about this, and mainly to be supportive, but also there were a couple guys that I could tell were looking at me going, wait, you can do this? I didn't realize you could do this. Like, this seems like maybe this should be something I look into. I know that sounds dark, but it does certainly make you re-examine things, because I can tell you in our friend circle, in our town, I'm now going back a while, like 15 years probably, but I recall that we were probably among the first to split up, but then over the next 3 or 4 years, there was at least one other per year. And a lot of the couples, people you wouldn't expect at all. And so it goes back to something you said earlier in the show, is you never really do know what's going on behind closed doors. And my thing is, if they're your friends, they're your friends. You want to support them? Great. If you never really liked this person or that person in the first place, then you've been fine. Then you can say goodbye to them. But divorce is hard enough. So in this show shows how people grapple with it, but you hope that most people at least sort of have a heart. And they do. Like Steve Carell's ex, even though at first she seems persona non grata because here comes the new girlfriend, you later see that the friends still support her down the road.
But how much of that is social grieving, right? When you touch on, you're mourning the old group, you're mourning the vacations and the holidays and the weekends upstate and all the things that they did as a friend group. And then when a couple splits, there is that mourning period, right?
Yeah,
You're mourning the old group. Is it selfish of the friends to prejudge the new girlfriend? Are they justified? How do you sort of integrate a new person into the mix when you've had this established friend group that does all sorts of fun things together? I would imagine that's a challenge.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, we're all human, and so even me being someone that was divorced, watching the show, thought that the Steve Carell character kind of brought her in a little too quickly and, like, expected everyone to just embrace her right away.
And then she planned a pretty shitty vacation.
That's right. Right. Yeah. They leave her to plan the vacation, which turns out to be mostly a disaster. So it's only human to look at that Steve Carell person, whoever it is, in a different hypothetical or whatever, and say, hey, maybe don't throw this new person in our face so aggressively right away. We'll get to know her eventually, and we want to support you, Steve Carell guy, but we can't. It's only human to look at that new person and go, hey, you know what? We really like the old person. So it goes to show you that things are never perfect when it comes to these things, and it takes time. I think that's it.
I'm with you.
All right. We now move to the portion of the show where Evan brings his gavel to court and tells us whether certain things are underrated or overrated.
Overrated.
Or underrated.
All right, then. Well, we begin with some overrated, underrated topics from the legal world. Actually, at least one, I would say, from the legal world. And the first one is restraining orders in divorce cases. So we'll start with the heavy topic, then we'll move on to lighter ones. But restraining orders in divorce cases, Evan, overrated or underrated?
Dave, absolutely underrated when they're necessary, and very often they are. Unfortunately, there's often domestic violence, whether physical or non-physical, coercive control, psychological manipulation, financial abuse, that requires police intervention, often resulting in criminal orders of protection and also family court orders of protection. Restraining orders can be limited. They could be broad in scope. They could limit someone's contact with that other parent or spouse, child interactions, communication. It is underrated. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, there is domestic violence. It's prevalent in divorces and child custody cases, and someone should absolutely reach out if they find themselves in a situation like we just went through.
So you don't use them as like a hammer, do you? I guess that's sort of a leading question. Sorry for leading the witness, Your Honor. But I know that they are necessary in certain cases, and yet there's a perception that some family lawyers will use them as an aggressive weapon. Is that a thing, or not necessarily?
No, it is a thing. And I think, look, I gave the underrated because I think there's a lot of people out there that find themselves in situations just like this. And understandably, whether they're afraid to call the police or they're afraid to seek an order of protection, that's why I gave it the underrated, because I think when necessary, absolutely you need to do what you need to do to protect yourself and protect your children from an absolutely horrific, terrible situation. With that said, there are people, right, who will use it for strategy, use it to gain the upper hand in a custody proceeding or a divorce when there is no domestic violence, and someone might go in and fabricate or falsify certain claims and certain allegations. So from that perspective, right, I think that's where it gets used as a sword, to answer your question. But look, when it's necessary, absolutely anyone going through a situation like this should absolutely seek an order of protection and the court's assistance.
All right. Well, the judge has to rule, and so the judge will rule. Underrated. All right. We move on. Let's do airport lounges. Evan, they're a mysterious thing. We walk through the airports. A lot of us aren't allowed in the airport lounges. We wonder what mysteries lurk within. Luxury, perhaps. Shrimp cocktail, perhaps. Airport lounges, overrated or underrated?
Absolutely overrated. Look, maybe it's because I don't love to fly. Maybe it's because you can only access them if you're a member. Maybe it's because, Dave, the lines are just too damn long. Or maybe because I don't want to spend time at an airport. But look, I don't really care about how cushy the couch is in an airport lounge or how nice it is. Who the hell wants to spend more time than you absolutely need to at an airport? Why are you in the airport? You show up because you're bored of flight. Unless you're telling me that you're just that type of guy or person that shows up to an airport lounge and you're not looking to board a flight, I mean, you might have bigger problems, right? Who cares about the lounge? Who cares about the shrimp cocktail? If you want good shrimp cocktail, what are you doing at an airport lounge? Go out to a nice dinner, Dave. Look, I got to tell you, especially if you're at a redesigned airport like LaGuardia Airport in New York or some other great airports around the country, you don't need a lounge. It is one of the most overrated things imaginable.
Overrated.
Oh, I agree. I don't think I've ever been in one, to be fair, but
I've been rejected from one or two before.
I had a colleague once that you would appreciate. He was famous for cutting everything close and showing up to flights at the last minute, but he said, well, my strategy is if I time it right, and he claimed to have never missed a flight, he never stops moving. He never stops moving. You're moving, and then when you finally get to the gate, you get in line to get on the plane, and it usually worked for him because, why? Who's the guy who shows up 3 hours early and then wants to spend time in an airport? They're pretty.
I'll tell you, the guy who's going to find themselves in my office, that's the guy who wants to get out of his house. I mean, that's the guy who's leaving for the airport 6 hours early.
Although I got to tell you, redone LaGuardia is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
And I recently had a rare train layover in what do you call your new train station there? The
Penn Station, Grand Central.
It's I guess it's which one is the one that's been newly renovated? It's you know what I'm talking about?
The Long Island Railroad is now connected to Grand Central. Dave, forget all the logistics.
Never mind.
Dave, I'm asking. This means that you were in New York. You didn't stop by.
I said it was
You didn't take me out to that steak dinner that you owe me because your Red Sox absolutely stink. I think you owe me 3 steak dinners at this point.
I do. Wow, what a faux pas. All right, I will come back to that very train station when I figure out which one it was, and I will buy you 3 steak dinners. Let's move on before he takes me up on this. Next item for overrated, underrated, and final item for the day. Bucket lists. Oh, bucket lists are all the rage. Everyone's got to compile their bucket lists, and it usually involves skydiving or something. Your thoughts on bucket list, overrated or underrated?
Dave, underrated. I say dream. Dream big. Dream big and make a list of all your dreams and your hopes and your desires. Why not? Try and accomplish as much as you can. The list doesn't have to be all big things like take the most extraordinary vacation. But if you want to list it. Why not? It could be small things. It could be big things. Work hard. Work towards it. Because you know why? When you cross it off, it is an awesome, awesome feeling. I say dream. Dream big, Dave.
What remains on your bucket list? Or give us either something you've crossed off or something you've yet to cross off.
And hanging out with you.
Oh, stop.
A Red Sox game with the legendary producer Dave.
Well, that's on my bucket list, to go to either a Yankee game or a Sox game or both with Evan in the city. Put it on my bucket list. And
let's make that happen.
All right. We'll be done. We'll be done.
Have you ever had a baking oops turn into something delicious? Well, that's exactly what happened with Muffin Crumbles, the dessert that's part muffin, part magic, and all mouth-watering fun. The amazing bakers at Muffin Crumbles take perfectly crumbled muffins, yes, crumbled on purpose, add fluffy homemade whipped cream, and top it all off with delicious extras. It's like a dessert party in a box. And the best part, no rules. Just pure dessert freedom. Spoon it, fork it, or mix it all up. You do you. Perfect for treating yourself, gifting a friend, or just making snack time way more fun. So grab your spork and order your Muffin Crumbles kit now at muffincrumbles.com. That's muffincrumbles.com. Because sometimes the best things come from happy accidents.
Are you navigating the challenges of divorce and feeling overwhelmed? You're not alone, and you don't have to go through it alone. You should get in touch with Rhonda Nordegg, financial divorce advocate, where it's all about you. Rhonda helps women transform what can feel like the most difficult time into a journey of empowerment. As a certified financial analyst, Rhonda is committed to guiding women to make confident financial decisions, negotiate effectively, and be positioned to leave a legacy well beyond the divorce process. She has not only helped over 1,000 women that trusted her, but also helped move $25 million into the hands of women that otherwise would have been left on the table. She'll even help you find the right attorney, support you in managing conflict productively, and give you the tools to advocate for yourself. Connect with her today at womensfinancialwellnesscenter.com, because your divorce experience should lead to a stronger, happier you. On this week's episode of the Schein podcast, I am joined by Haleh Moddasser, CPA and author of Great Divorce, Silver Linings. She is the managing partner at Stearns Financial Group with absolutely incredible insights into late life divorce. Haleh is going to reveal why boomers are calling it quits and how women can navigate the financial and emotional complexities of starting over after 50. Haleh, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We're excited, and we're going to get into your book and all different topics. I want to start with your work on women and wealth. And I want to ask you, what do you find to be the biggest myth about women and money that still persists today?
Well, if it's not related to divorce, I would say that generally speaking, the industry views women as being super conservative investors. And studies actually show that men are overconfident investors and women are not conservative. And in fact, women investors generally earn about 1% more per year than their male counterparts. So I think that's a huge myth.
Because I think there is, to your point, there is this belief out there, and it sounds like it's incorrect, that women are still more hesitant than men when it comes to financial risk-taking. When you hear that, what's your thought?
I think that what is true is that women are less likely to invest. But I think when they do invest, they're not more risk averse. So there's a distinction there. And I think part of it is on the industry itself, which was obviously created by and still predominantly male dominated. So there's a very patronizing talking down to women element. Like if you're part of a couple and you go in and you have a male advisor, the husband is talking to the advisor and you're just kind of sitting there. If you ask a question, they kind of talk over you or make you feel less than. And so it's just not a very comfortable space for women to actually educate themselves. And I think that contributes to kind of the fear of it. But I find if you are able to work with women and educate them, they're phenomenal investors. They do everything right. They don't buy high, sell low. They don't trade every day. They're not trying to generate alpha. They're disciplined. They're slow and steady. And they outperform, generally speaking, because they don't make mistakes. They're more willing to take advice.
Do you find the women that you work with post-divorce have a different mindset, a different attitude, a different approach now that they have this different life, new life ahead of them, as opposed to how they might have experienced working with money during the marriage?
Yeah, there's an interesting stat out there. After widowhood, women fire their husband's financial advisor 70% of the time within the first 12 months. And that's when the marriage ended on good terms. So you can only imagine what it's like when there's a divorce. I mean, the women want nothing to do with the advisor that the husband was friends with. And so they come to a woman advisor like myself, and they are ready to take control of the financial reins. It's a very freeing experience for many boomer women, which is the majority of people that I work with, because they grew up of an age where there were those gender roles, and the husband took care of the investments and the women took care of the family and the social life. And so all of a sudden, they're in charge of their own money, their own spending, their own decision-making surrounding the risk tolerance, how they want to invest. And yeah, I would say they're highly, highly engaged in terms of making sure that they do what's best for not only themselves, but for their children and the greater good. Women are generally very concerned about legacy. And so they do work on that part as well.
And Haleh, you use the word freedom, which I absolutely love. And I see this as a matrimonial and divorce attorney all the time. And you're spot on. The women clients that I work with, they're looking to start over, start new, start fresh, surround themselves with an entirely new team, whether it's a CPA, whether it's a financial advisor, a new estate planning attorney. And there is that sense of relief and excitement. And I'm finding more and more of my clients want to learn, want to be educated, or excited for this next chapter. They might be coming into a large sum of money and they're excited. They're excited to sit down, work with someone and really understand what money, what investing is all about. So, Haleh, take us into one of your first meetings with the client after divorce. If you could create a mandatory financial curriculum for women over 50, what would be the first lesson? And what do you really want someone you work with to understand about investing?
Well, let me back you up first and say that we generally start working with the woman while she's contemplating a divorce. So not even after. I don't know if your audience knows this, but the gray divorce, which is divorce over age 50 by longtime married couples, generally is initiated by women 2/3 of the time, which is kind of a shocking statistic for that age group. But they're the ones that generally want out. And so they have time to plan. So they come in, they get us to help them evaluate and quantify the size of the marital estate. How much do I have? What's the net worth? And then this speaks to your question. What is the first thing I want a woman to do is create a prospective financial plan. That's whether she's before the divorce or after the divorce. Because what I want to do is ensure that through this process of the divorce and the settlement, that she knows what her minimum number is she needs to get to live the life that she wants. I mean, she's choosing a do-over, and I don't want her to be worried about money. Now, granted, as a financial advisor, I work with higher net worth people. And so we have the luxury of being able to quantify half the value of the business? What is the gain on the sale of the marital home? What does the option look like? Is it alimony? Is it a lump sum distribution? And generally in this age group, we're not at all concerned about child support. The kids are growing.
Sure.
This really is a business transaction. And that's my number one advice and goal for women is you need to view this like a business deal. You're making a deal, and given your age, you don't really get a do-over. You're probably not going to go back to work and make millions of dollars. So we cannot make a financial mistake during this process.
And Haleh, I'm sure some of the clients you work with, they're more receptive to terminology, to investing, to learning about money. What is your response to your clients when they say, Haleh, I just don't like dealing with money. I want nothing to do with it. How do you respond?
I said, well, that's why you have me. But what I actually find is that almost all of them are interested in the financial plan. Well, for one thing, it puts their headspace in the future instead of the past. So instead of worrying about how crappy the marriage was, how he robbed her of her youth and beauty, how he cheated on her, all the negativity, it moves to, what do you want your life to look like? Do you want to move to the beach? Do you want to go back to school? Do you want to travel around the world? Let's quantify that. So it forces this person to start thinking about their life going forward instead of backwards. Once I can get somebody in that space, now I say, well, let's quantify this. Let's figure out how much money you need to get that house on the water, plus be able to travel to see your kids in New York, plus be able to take your art classes. You start layering in all of this, and by the time you get through, they have a real sense of what their life looks like and what it takes to get them there. So they're not as fearful of that negotiating process, because having your head in the sand usually doesn't elicit a good outcome. So once they know I need X dollars as a minimum, it's a lot easier to negotiate a settlement. And once they're in that space, the financial plan is predicated on you get this much money, and if you don't invest it, you have a 0% return, and actually you're losing money to inflation. So your long-term asset projection is inverted. And if you invest it conservatively, let's say you put it in money market, you're going to earn 4%. Long-term average is 3%. It's going to look something like this. But if you invested in a disciplined asset allocation, let's say a 60-40 for your age and stage, it's going to look like this. Well, once that light bulb goes off, that woman is much more understanding of the importance of compound interest, right? She suddenly understands. I'm not having to convince her that she needs to invest her assets. She gets it. She understands why people do this, and she's willing to do that. So it really is just kind of an iterative process through the entire negotiation and afterwards.
And Haleh, you have a fantastic book out, Great Divorce, Silver Linings. I want to ask you, what did you find fascinating about this topic that led you to want to write a book about it?
Yeah, this was really wild. So I had just started my career as a financial advisor when this woman walked into my office. And by the way, I'm used to getting women clients because as a woman advisor, you kind of attract those. But this woman was 76.
Wow.
And she came into my office. She asked for my help. That's not unusual. I thought she had been widowed. And she said, I want a divorce and I need you to help me. And I honestly thought, I had this flash of my mother at 76 and my grandmother at 76. And the idea that anyone would leave a marriage at age 76, when, let's face it, that's about when they died, right? How does somebody want a do-over at age 76? And so I thought something dramatic has changed in the last 2 generations. And what is that? And so I really started to research it. And there are a lot of causes for this. I mean, one is the divorce laws are more equitable. One is divorce is no longer a taboo. One is that it's just more, the kids are grown. But the number one reason, and this was a surprise to me, was longevity. People have added 10 years to their life expectancy since 1960. And it's not just 10 miserable years in a nursing home. It's 10 good years. Like I have 80-year-olds who are traveling to Europe with their families.
And how great is that? That's fantastic.
Wonderful.
When
It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's fantastic. People want this second act and they want more out of life. And I'm seeing it more on the divorce side. And at first, I mean, look, we're sharing a brain. I started seeing 5-6 years ago, more clients coming into my office, a lot of women in their early 70s, mid 70s. And at first I'm thinking to myself, what are you
doing?
Yeah. And we've talked about on the podcast before, producer Dave and I, and is we've had topics and really talked about it, which is it has become this phenomenon. But if you start really analyzing it, for many people, they want, even at that age, more out of life. And I'm seeing more and more, and it sounds like you're seeing more and more as well.
Oh, I mean, it's honestly, it's a pandemic.
Yeah.
It's growing at double the general divorce rate. So younger people are getting divorced less and older people are getting divorced more. And part of it is that it's the boomer generation. And as usual, they're the naughty ones. So the boomers got divorced. We're the first generation to get divorced at younger ages. And once you've been divorced once, and I hate to tell all of you, and I'm on a second marriage, so I hope this doesn't jinx me, but your marital biography really determines how likely you are to get divorced. So by the time you're on your fifth marriage, you're like 90% likely to get divorced. And so if you were divorced as a younger boomer in your 40s, let's call it, you're more likely to have a second divorce than a third divorce. So that phenomenon is just kind of rippling through. I mean, it is the me generation.
Yeah, no, it is true. Haleh, how do you navigate the emotional side of money for your clients when it's tied to decades and decades of marriage?
Yeah, what I find is at first it's really hard, and the women are kind of looking for someone to tell them what to do. And it could be a brother, it could be even their ex-husband. They're still kind of talking to him about, well, what are you going to do with your assets? That kind of thing.
Yep.
And it takes a while to get the training wheels off, but they start to trust their own judgment after they do it a while. I mean, it's experience. These women, and believe me, my clients, one of them is the head of the American Thoracic Society. I mean, these are not stupid people. They just don't have either the interest or the experience. And once they apply themselves, they're quite savvy. Even the people on my team that are male advisors have now acknowledged that the women are better investors. And they really fought that for a long time.
It's fascinating. I want to ask you about investing. Can investing really change the world? Or do you find ESG just another form of fantastic marketing?
Sadly, I think it was exploited as fantastic marketing. But I do think that people, especially in a capitalist society like ours, I mean, look at what's happening politically.
Sure.
Money talks,
Yep.
right? And so to the extent that women currently control 2/3 of the nation's wealth, 2/3, that's on the order of $20 trillion. It's almost as big as the nation's debt. This is a lot of money. To the extent that women put their money where their mouth is, I do think that there's power there. But I think it was exploited, the concept of ESG, where I think a lot of big name firms, I won't name any, ended up with portfolios that they built that promised to do things that were never measured, and they charged higher fees. And if you looked under the hood, they actually had bigger carbon footprints than the non-constrained portfolio.
Sure.
So yes, I think it was terribly exploited. Do I think that women can use their wealth to make a difference in the world? Absolutely. I mean, you look at microfinancing, you look at VC funds. I mean, women can support women's health, lots of things if they put their mind to it.
Do you think people are happier when they have more money, or is that a myth?
Can I tell you that my highest net worth client is one of my least happy? So I don't say that the money has made her less happy, but I don't think the money makes you more happy beyond a certain point. And that point, I've read studies that says if you have over $70,000, more money doesn't make you happier. I don't buy that. And among my clients, they would die on $70,000, but it doesn't take $50 million, right? I mean, if you can have the roof over your head that you want, you have love in your life, you have relationships, you have kids, you can travel several times a year, do what you want. I mean, really, like, you just don't need a whole lot more money to make you happier.
Tell us about your background. I know you studied journalism. How did you go from storytelling to wealth management?
Well, I can just go ahead and tell you that I went through my own gray divorce. That was the start of it all. And I was an aspiring artist. I studied painting at Florence Academy of Art, and I was painting away in my living room while my kids were off at school. And then suddenly, when they were teenagers, I found myself divorced. And it was two things. One, painting was a very isolating activity, and to have gone through a divorce, I felt like I needed to re-engage with the world, the adult world. And so that was part of it. And two, I mean, I'll be honest, I tried to seek help for myself. I mean, fortunately, I'm a CPA and I had a finance background, so I had some sense of what I was doing. But the advice that I got was so terrible on the financial front. And I realized, like, if a person like me with my background could receive bad advice and potentially make a huge mistake at this big inflection point, think of the women out there who, you know, whether they're doctors, nurses, or stay-at-home moms who just don't have a financial background, the money that's left on the table and the impact that that has on their future life is enormous. And studies prove that out, that women generally, their standards of living decline, whereas men who are divorced either achieve or exceed their married standards of living because they've worked and they continue to work, and they're just more savvy financially because they've done it. And so I just really felt a calling, if you will. My goal was to redeem what happened to me by helping other people. And I find it extremely satisfying. I have people who say, how can you want to relive that over and over and over again? And I don't feel like I'm reliving it. I feel like every time I'm going to create a happy outcome like the one I've had.
I love that. And I'm going to ask you to relive it for the next question. As you relive it in your work and as you work with clients, and if you think back to your marriage and the financial decisions that you made during your marriage, are there things and common themes that you see between the way you thought about money and finances and the women that you work with today? And how do you use your divorce experience to empower women, to educate them, and to really take control of their financial situations?
I say this in my book, and it's going to sound very cliche, but I could go out and buy myself a pair of Prada shoes without permission. It sounds silly, right? But if you think on so many of these marriages, the husband goes and buys the golf clubs. Yep. He does whatever he wants. The woman is sort of asking permission. And to be able to, I mean, why we find ourselves in that subordinate role, that disempowered role in these long-time marriages among boomers, that's a common theme that I see, where they don't really know what's going on. Husband's doing whatever he wants. She's asking permission. Sometimes things are done they don't even know about. I mean, it comes out during the divorce. Oh, I didn't know you had joined that club. I didn't know you did that. Just the lack of transparency to all of a sudden being in charge of your own life and your own decisions with respect to money is a powerful, I would say, aphrodisiac to life, to just be able to know that you have agency. And I think that's the number one takeaway for all of these women in these long-term divorces, is that I see sort of this flourishing of people who suddenly start a land fund, go back to school, write a book, just do things that would never have happened within the confines of that marriage. It literally is a little bit like a rebirth. And I find that to be true for myself. And that is my goal, is to infuse the hope of that, the optimism of that in my clients.
Do you find, and I love that, do you find that the younger generations, millennials, Gen Zs, do you find they look at money differently? Do you find that they think about money differently? I see a lot of it on the prenup side. I do a lot of work in that space, and more people are entering prenuptial agreements. People are getting married later in life, but there is a sense of both people are thinking about money differently. A lot of my clients in their 20s or 30s have a very different mindset about money than my clients in their late 60s and 70s.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have read recently that in the old days, men married for looks and creating offspring that would be beautiful. So a beautiful wife was a thing, and the woman married for security. So a wealthy provider was the thing. And now it's kind of equalized, where the man also expects the woman to earn, and the woman also expects the guy to be good looking. So like now we've kind of met in the middle, and I was kind of encouraged by this, but more recently I read that even in the younger ranks, the millennial women, the younger women, the Gen Zs are still delegating that investment management function to their husbands. And I don't like to see that, because I think it's a mistake. I think the woman needs to maintain that agency, and she needs to be in the know about the family finances. This should not be a secret.
So how does it change? How does it change? Is it more education? Like what's the magic to eradicating that thinking, that the way people historically have viewed money in marriages and sort of that financial imbalance that exists?
I think it's really the way that our society and culture treats women who are financially savvy. It's not sexy for a woman to show up at a cocktail party and start talking about investing. It just really isn't. People just really wanted her to talk about the liberal arts. She's a painter, or she works at this philanthropy, and that's like the gender norm that feels attractive somehow. I literally had a financial advisor woman who worked for me, and on her online dating site, she had that she was a financial planner and got like zero interest. And then she changed it to something like nurse. And all of a sudden she met the man of her dreams and ended up getting married. It was just insane.
I believe it. I mean, I like it when people talk numbers. I like it when people talk Excel spreadsheets. Maybe I'm in the minority, but yeah.
I'm in the minority too, believe me.
Yeah. I mean, you start talking numbers and you start talking investing. Yeah. I mean, that's going to put you right at the top of the list. But no, it makes sense, and I totally get it. If you weren't doing what you do and working in finance, what would you be doing?
Let's see, painting in Tuscany, which I also do. I travel and do that, but I kind of have two sides of my brain, and I find that both sides work better if I'm employing the other. So if I only did advising and didn't have a creative outlet, it wouldn't be good. And if I only did the creative and didn't have the finance side, but it's kind of deep in my blood. I have two kids that work in Manhattan on Wall Street, and like, this is just who I am.
I love it. If you wrote another book, what would it be about?
I think it would be about the silver linings, because I've been in this long enough now that the women who came to me bereaved and devastated and scared are now like living their best lives. They're getting remarried. They're doing all the things that they dreamed of doing when they were young, and that those dreams got squashed, and they had kids and they got married, and everything that they were was subordinated, and now it's come back out. So yeah, something like a Match.bomb commentary or some such thing.
Haleh, you mentioned you have two kids. Did you start talking to your kids early on about money? And what advice would you give to parents about having those financial conversations with their kids?
So I didn't think I did so much, but apparently I did because now my kids are like, Mom, you realize that everybody, when we go to dinner at people's houses, they don't talk about investing and finance. You did that. No. It's almost an accusation, but I guess I did. I mean, that's an area of interest for me. So I've been in a financial capacity since I got my CPA when I was in my 20s. And so whether it was finance or it was corporate finance, it was tax, it was audit, now it's wealth management, but it's always been something related to business.
Give us one legacy you hope to leave behind when it comes to women and money.
I would really like to see women own their wealth and not hide from it. Just own it, use it for the greater good, whether it's your kids, whether it's the world at large. You know, when there are naming rights on buildings, the men always prominently display their name and they own that. When women give, they want to do it anonymously. So I want to see women be proud of it. I don't want it to be something that they hide behind. I want it to be sexy for women to talk about money.
I love that. Haleh, I want to bring on producer Dave, a guy who's got both the looks and the money. Dave, come on for the fun segment we always do on the podcast called They Said It.
They said it.
They said it.
They said it.
All right, what happens on They Said It is I have 3 quotes from famous people on the subject that Haleh will have something to say about, I'm quite sure. The first one comes to us from author Jennifer Weiner, which I couldn't see on my screen until just now. I got to get my act together here. Sorry, Evan. Man, you pumped me up and then I let you down. But these quotes are great. Jennifer Weiner had the following to say: divorce isn't such a tragedy. A tragedy is staying in an unhappy marriage, teaching your children the wrong things about love. Now, this is, of course, on the subject of the larger picture of divorce, not just the financial. But your thoughts, Haleh, about what Jennifer Weiner had to say.
I mean, here's what I think. The tragedy is somebody who is stifled in a marriage and the children never know what that parent is capable of. And I say this because I remember when I went through a divorce and I told my kids I had decided I was re-entering the work world. I mean, literally, I think my son rolled his eyes. Like, what can you do other than drive a minivan and take us to soccer practice, make dinner? And then a few years later, he was like, wow, Mom, you have utility. Can you imagine?
Imagine that.
Imagine if I had stayed married and my son and my daughter forever thought that I had no utility other than caring for them. That is a tragedy.
Yeah, it's the line from the movie A Bronx Tale: the saddest thing in life is wasted talent, right? And I can speak to you as a fellow divorced person, Haleh.
Yay.
And we gotta
you go, David.
We got to stick together, and we got to keep Evan close by in case we need him. But yeah, you do. I think both me and my ex-wife found things about ourselves we didn't know,
yeah,
and that's
you really grow.
And so there really are a lot of silver linings. Yeah. I'm sorry. Did you have?
I think it's hard. I mean, divorce is hard, and sometimes you don't grow unless you have to, right? It's an adverse situation, and you don't wish it on your worst enemy, but that's where the growth comes from because you have to survive it. You don't just want to survive it; you want to thrive, and that takes growth.
I had to learn how to do laundry. It was kind of important to have clean clothes, I thought. So yeah, and that's just one example. Next quote comes to us from Sheryl Sandberg, she the author of Lean In and many other things. Sheryl said the following, very simple here: money is power, and women need more of both.
Go, Sheryl. I cannot tell you how much I agree with this because I find that societally, women want to shirk the limelight, the power, the money. They just want to fly under the radar. And it's a little bit like what we just talked about, wasted talent. These are talented people. I mean, really talented. And for me, use it. It's almost, it's such a tragedy to not use the talent, the money, the power, and create the world you want to see instead of complaining nonstop about the world that is, right? I mean, if you want the world to be different, you have to be part of the solution.
Do you think a lot of it is, and maybe you've already answered this on the show, I don't know, but is just simply a remnant from the past? There are still those thoughts in many people's head that from the days of, I'm thinking of the 60s, the TV show Mad Men, where Betty Draper, she's...
poor Betty.
Yeah,
Love
poor
Betty.
And yeah, at some point she said, you might want to go back and do some modeling. And it was treated as such a novelty, like, oh, well, sure, maybe that'll give you something to do. But, as long as you keep...
And meanwhile, Don took it from her. He went and made a deal on the side with the guy, and then she didn't get to do it.
Shame on you, Don. It's one of his many missteps.
Don.
But you'd think we look back on that and we sort of laugh, but it's kind of, I'll use your word, a tragedy that some of those thoughts still might echo in people's heads. Do they?
I do think so.
Yeah.
Especially in the segment that I'm working in. So I'm not going to pretend that I know what the Gen Z is thinking. I mean, my daughter is incredibly empowered and she's a finance person, and I don't view her that way, but she's one data point, right? I don't know about the broader group. I do know that I work with a swath of boomer women, and there is that feeling when they first come in about, let's just call him Don. Don would never let me do that. Yeah. Don took care of that for me. Oh, I don't even know how to balance a checkbook. That kind of thing. And fast forward 5 years, this woman is like investing in microfinance and attending board meetings and helping empower women. And going to Cheryl's quote, we still have never had a woman president. Only 2% of venture capital money still goes to women. Only 6% of public company CEOs are women. I mean, women are not in a position of power in this country, and they could be. They have the wealth to do it.
Yeah, very interesting thoughts. And you bring up the women who have the, like, curse is not the right word, but just in the situation of a husband who happens to be financially powerful, wealthy. I wonder if we could hear from one of those women. Oh, look, the next quote comes to us from Melinda Gates. Okay. So Melinda Gates had the following to say: financial independence is paramount. The more women achieve it, the more society will evolve. Now, we've been talking about similar topics, Holly, but this one is kind of interesting and from an interesting source, Melinda Gates. Your thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show you that these gray divorces are not stratified by wealth, right? I mean, it impacts everybody for one reason or another, a lot of times the same reasons. But there's a lot of evidence that on boardrooms, when you have a dichotomy of people, so you have people of different color, races, whatever, together, that company will typically perform better as a business. And I think that's a little micro study of society as a whole, is you get more voices, more perspectives in the room, and you come up with better solutions. And so, dare I say, we've been letting men control things for a long time, and look where we find ourselves.
What do you mean? Everything is just great. And, yeah.
You can cut that part out.
No, that's okay. I mean, we tend not to get too political on the Schein On podcast, but when it's kind of hard to avoid sometimes, and let's not avoid the elephant in the middle of the room. It's sad to think that the progress that women have made is kind of at a standstill in a matter of speaking right now. It's
a step backward, not only for American women, but many countries around the world, particularly third world countries, look to the U.S. as the light on the hill. They aspire to the things that we have achieved in this country, and to see that go back has a refractory impact on those women.
That's a good point.
There are
Good point.
there are dozens of, United Nations countries that have had a woman in power way before us. What is our problem? Well, we're not going to solve all the ills of society today, but I did learn a lot on today's show. And Holly, thank you for being a good sport.
I love it. Thank you for having me.
Back to you, Evan, to wrap things up.
Holly, I got to tell you, this was absolutely fantastic. Great to have you on the show. Your book, Great Divorce, Silver Linings, an absolute must read. Tell everybody where they can pick up a copy and how can people get in touch with you?
So right here, you can get it on Amazon. I'm proud to say it's an Amazon bestseller. And
Nice.
I've had many people read the book. It has my contact information on the back cover. And I've actually had people going through these high net worth divorces, difficult divorces, contacting me from all over the country. And I have to say it's a privilege and an honor to help every one of these women.
It's great having you on.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Episode 89 in the books. What a show. Dave, how great of a segment was the docket? How great was the overrated, underrated? And how about Haleh Moddasser? Absolutely brilliant.
Terrific guest. I learned a lot, per usual. Yeah, this was a jambalaya of great stuff. Great way to kick off the summer, since we've now established it starts on July 4th. Not before, not after.
Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. It's all the Schein On Podcast listeners. Check out this episode and all episodes of the Schein On Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. I'm Evan Schein, and I'll talk to you again real soon.